Greetings from the World Meteorological Organization, the specialized agency of the United Nations on weather, climate and water. We are privileged to speak at the 78th session of the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. Please accept my best wishes for the happy 75th anniversary. Weather, climate and water extremes are becoming more frequent and intense in many parts of the world as a result of climate change. We are seeing more intense heat waves and drought and forest fires. We have more water vapor in the atmosphere, which leads to extreme rainfall and deadly flooding. The warming of the ocean fuels more powerful tropical storms and rising sea levels increase their impacts. We expect this negative and disruptive trend to continue. Greenhouse gas concentrations are at record levels, locking in climate change to continue for the decades to come. Melting of glaciers and sea level rise that could continue for centuries. More of us are exposed than ever before to multiple hazards, which are themselves evolving as a result of population growth, urbanization and environmental degradation. According to WMO's Atlas of the Mortality and Economic Losses from Weather, Climate and Water Extremes 1970-2019, the number of disasters increased fivefold between 1970 and 2019. Economic losses have increased even more, by a factor of 7. We face simultaneous multiple hazards with cascading impacts on infrastructure, agriculture, transport, energy and health systems. The findings from the latest WMO State of Climate reports in Asia and the Southwest Pacific, which is a joint effort of WMO and ESCAP, support the facts presented earlier. The reports provide an overview of land and ocean temperatures, precipitation, glacier retreat, shrinking sea ice, sea level rise and severe weather. They further examine socioeconomic impacts in a year when the region was also struggling with the COVID-19 pandemic, which in turn complicated disaster management. Ladies and gentlemen, the regional climate reports demonstrate that increasing socioeconomic costs jeopardize sustainable development. The growing number of disasters due to climate change is endangering implementation of a large number of Sustainable Development Goals. This trend is expected to continue as people, assets and infrastructure are exposed to risk in our interconnected urbanized world. By 2030, an estimated 50% of the world's population will live in coastal areas exposed to flooding, storms and tsunamis. Greater coordination between national meteorological and hydrological services, disaster management authorities and development agencies is fundamental to better prevention, preparedness and response. Thanks to improved early warnings and disaster risk reduction strategies, the number of deaths decreased almost threefold since 1970. As part of this global agenda, WMO has been mandated by the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres to lead the action to ensure every person on Earth is protected by early warning systems within 5 years. WMO will seek to close the gaps in observation, data collection and sharing, to expand the capacity of all countries to issue warnings ahead of a disaster, while simultaneously also improving their capacity to act on those warnings and to respond in a manner that is people-centered, inclusive and accessible. Closing the early warning gap will require inputs from actors throughout the entire early warning and early action value chain. WMO will lead this effort to achieve universal coverage of early warning services in close collaboration with key partners as a collective contribution toward global adaptation efforts. These include the WMO multi-hazard alert system GMAS, leverages progress in early warnings against hazards such as tropical cyclones, flooding and coastal inundation. The Systematic Observation Financing Facility SOF was established at COP26 jointly with UNEP and UNDP as a new financing mechanism. One of the highest returns of investments will be achieved by improving weather, water and climate early warning services and related observing infrastructure and networks. The Climate Risk and Early Warning Systems Initiative CRUISE bridges the capacity gap in life-saving early warning systems for vulnerable countries. Dear participants, WMO looks forward to continued cooperation with ESCAP and its member states in advancing progress on the Sustainable Development Goals. We hope to achieve WMO's vision that by 2030 we will see a world where all nations, especially the most vulnerable, are more resilient to the socio-economic consequences of extreme weather, climate, water and other environmental events, and underpin their sustainable development through the best possible services, whatever over land, at sea or in the air. With that, I look forward to fruitful discussions and I wish you all happy and safe meeting. Thank you for the opportunity to address you.